A full man does not pray with desperation. A full man does not reach for heaven. He has everything he needs within arm's reach. And the enemy knows this. He has always known this. His oldest strategy is not persecution. It is provision. Keep the man fed. Keep the man comfortable. Keep the man satisfied, and he will never become a threat. This is not a modern problem. It is an ancient one, and God named it. He named it in a chapter most men have read and forgotten, not because it was unclear, but because what it demands is uncomfortable. And a comfortable church does not preach uncomfortable weapons. They handed you a gospel with no hunger in it, a faith with no fast in it, a Christianity so well fed it forgot what it was built to fight. And you inherited that, not by choice, but by silence. But there is a chapter in the book of Isaiah, a chapter that reads not like poetry, but like a verdict, where the God of heaven tears away every religious decoration and speaks in the voice of a general who has watched his army march in circles for 1,000 years. He does not ask, he declares, "Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke?" Isaiah chapter 58 verse 6. This is not a suggestion. This is a chosen weapon named by the mouth of God himself. Isaiah spoke these words into a nation that fasted religiously and oppressed its workers in the same breath. A people whose rituals were immaculate and whose hearts were stone. The full indictment of that chapter runs wider than any single man. But the principle it exposes cuts to the bone of every man who has ever wondered why his prayers bounce off the ceiling. God does not respond to the performance of discipline. He responds to the reality of surrender. And the weapon Isaiah names, true fasting, total self-denial, has been sitting in the armory of your faith, untouched, rusting, while the yokes you have prayed against for years remain locked around your throat. But before you understand what fasting does, you must understand what it was, because the man who picks up a weapon without knowing its history will wound himself before he wounds the enemy. There was a man who stood at the edge of a wilderness with 6,000 lives behind him and no army in front of him, and he called a fast before he took a single step. There is a moment every man knows, when the road ahead is dangerous, the resources are thin, and the only honest thing left to do is admit that his own strength will not be enough. Ezra stood at that moment, and what he did next has been largely cut from the sermons of comfortable men. A scribe, a scholar, a man whose hands knew the scroll better than the sword, and yet the scroll had made him more dangerous than any soldier the king could have sent. He had been commissioned to lead 6,000 souls across open bandit country. No escort, no iron column, no wall between his people and the wilderness. He had already declared to the king that the hand of God covered all who sought him. The words had left his mouth. They were written. They could not be retrieved. And now he stood at the river Ahava with the full weight of that declaration pressing into his chest like a blade laid flat against the ribs. To ask for soldiers now would be to call God a liar before a pagan throne. So he did the only thing left to a man who has staked everything on the word of the Almighty. He called a fast, not as a ritual, as a declaration of total dependence, as a man who has removed his own hands from the outcome and placed the full weight of 6,000 lives into the hands of heaven. Not for himself alone, for every man, woman, and child standing at that river. Then I proclaimed a fast there, at the river Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our God, to seek from him a safe journey for ourselves, our children, and all our goods. So we fasted and implored our God for this, and he listened to our entreaty. Ezra, chapter 8, verses 21 through 23. Mark what happened. The fast came before the first footstep, before the road, before the danger, before the battle even had a name. This is the original architecture of biblical fasting. It was never a reaction to crisis. It was preparation for advance. The man who fasts before the war is not afraid. He is positioning. He is placing himself beneath the hand of God before the weight of the world falls on his shoulders. Ezra was not the last man to understand this architecture. Centuries later, the Knights of the Crusading Orders built the same principle into the foundation of their rule of life. Before a campaign, before the march, before the blade left its scabbard, there was the vigil. A night of empty tables, open hands, and bent knees before the throne. Not penitence, not ritual, positioning. They understood that a man who has not yet conquered his own appetite has no business commanding anything else. The fast came before the advance. Always before the advance. But here is what no one told you. There is a fast God looks at and turns away from. A fast that produces nothing. A fast you may have already attempted and wondered in silence why the heavens did not move. You have fasted before. You skipped the meal. You felt the hunger, and the heavens did not move. You assumed God was silent. But the same voice that named the weapon also named the reason it misfired. The same chapter, the same Isaiah. But now the tone is not instruction, it is indictment. Why have we fasted and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you take no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast you seek your own pleasure and oppress all your workers. Behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight. Isaiah chapter 58, verses 3 and 4. A man who skips a meal but carries his appetite for comfort into every other hour of the day has not fasted. He has dieted. That is all. God does not answer diets. He answers war. A man who abstains from food but feeds without restraint on distraction, on noise, on the slow sedation of entertainment. His stomach is empty, but his soul is still fully fed on the wrong things. Understand this. Fasting is not a law about eating. It is a principle about supply. The flesh does not only feed through the mouth, it feeds through the eye, through the ear, through the constant consumption of comfort, approval, and stimulation. The man who skips bread but spends his hours drowning in noise has not fasted. He has rearranged his appetite. True fasting is the systematic refusal to supply yourself through any gate the flesh uses to stay in control. The blade of this truth cuts here. Fasting is not defined by what you remove from your mouth. It is defined by what you make room for in your spirit. The fast God chooses is a complete withdrawal from self-supply. Not just bread, but the illusion that you can navigate this day on your own resources. This is where most men stop. Because hunger is only the beginning of what a true fast demands. It will expose every anxiety you have been medicating with food. It will surface every restlessness you have been silencing with consumption. The fast does not create emptiness. It reveals what was already empty. And that revelation is the point. Because you cannot fill what you refuse to acknowledge is hollow. Ask yourself now, not later, what you are still feeding that should have been starved long ago. You know what it is. You have always known. But knowing what fasting is not will not win the war. A man must know how to build the discipline into the architecture of his life, not as an event, but as a weapon he draws regularly. Christ gave one command about fasting that most men have never truly heard. Not whether to fast. He assumed you would, but how? But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Matthew chapter 6, verses 17 and 18. The fast is hidden. It is not announced. It is not posted. It is not a badge of spiritual achievement worn in public for the recognition of men. It is a transaction between a warrior and his god, conducted in secret, sealed in silence, rewarded in the unseen. This is the architecture. 3 levels, 3 grades of intensity, each one a step further from self-reliance and deeper into the fire. The dawn fast. Before the day speaks, you are silent. Before the first demand is made, the table is empty. Nothing enters the body until the word has been read and the prayer has been spoken. This is the first gate. Small, daily, absolute. The man who masters this has won the first battle before the world knows the fight has started. The 24-hour fast, from sundown to sundown. The biblical rhythm of a full day without bread. This is where the discipline stops being comfortable. The hours will stretch. The body will negotiate. It will tell you that you have been faithful enough, that God understands, that tomorrow is just as holy as today. Do not listen. You came in with a battle. You named a stronghold before you began. Hold it before God through every hour until the sun goes down again. What breaks in you during those hours is what needed to break. The Daniel fast. Not total abstinence, but the stripping of all pleasure from the table. No meat, no wine. Nothing that rewards the flesh for showing up. You eat because the body must function, nothing more. 7 days, 14, 21. The table becomes an altar of refusal. This fast is not for single battles. It is for the wars that have followed your bloodline for generations, for the strongholds that have laughed at your prayers for years. Enter it when the weight is too heavy for a single day of hunger to move. 3 grades, 1 discipline. Build from the first to the third, not in pride, but in war. A man who masters the dawn fast has conquered the first hour of the day. A man who completes a 24-hour fast has proven to his body that it does not rule him. A man who endures the Daniel fast has stripped the table of every comfort the flesh uses to stay in control, and held his position for days while the weight of the battle rested entirely in the hands of God. Each grade is a deeper surrender, each one a louder declaration to heaven and hell alike. I will not supply myself. Not today. Not through any gate. Isaiah opened this chapter with a weapon. He named the false fast and exposed it. He laid the architecture of true fasting bare. And then, at the end of the same chapter, he sealed it with a promise that belongs only to the man who obeyed. There is a word in Isaiah 58 that most men never reach because they stopped reading after the conviction. They felt the weight of the indictment and closed the book. But the chapter does not end with the blade. It ends with the dawn. The same voice, the same chapter. Now it speaks not of what is required, but of what is promised. Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Isaiah chapter 58, verse 8. Then, the word lands like a gate swinging open, not after the performance of religion, not after the ritual of empty stomachs worn as a badge, after the real thing, the fast that costs something, the fast that strips comfort from every gate, not just the mouth, the fast that moves a man from self-supply into total dependence on the hand of God. Isaiah wrote this promise to a nation. But every nation is made of men, and every man who has ever surrendered his supply truly surrendered it in secret, without display, before the Father who sees in the hidden place, has stood on the receiving end of this verse. Not perhaps, not possibly. Then, you are standing at that decision now. Join the order. Not for knowledge, you have knowledge. Not for instruction, you have been instructed. But to stand with men who have chosen the narrow table, who fast before they advance, who have learned that the most violent act of faith a man can commit is to close his mouth, open his hands, and declare to heaven and hell alike, "I will not supply myself today. Let the dawn come. Let the light break." You have carried the map long enough. Now walk the road. Enter the wilderness, not the wilderness of geography, but the one inside you. The place where your hunger is no longer filled by the world's table, where your silence is no longer broken by the noise you use to avoid God's voice. Fast. Not once, as a discipline, as a weapon you draw regularly, sharpen in secret, and carry into every campaign that matters. Pray, not with words rehearsed for performance, but with the raw, undecorated cry of a man who has nothing left in his hands. And when you rise, you will not rise the same. The enemy will look for the man he knew, the man whose comfort was his leash. That man will be gone. What stands in his place will be forged in absence, sealed in hunger, and lit from within by a fire the world did not give and cannot take. The weapon has been named. Draw it.